Hi, and welcome to Boom It's on the Blockchain. And we're into our 76th show, and we've got a special guest with us today, Philippe Theunissen.
Thank you. Great to have me on the show, Alistair.
Yeah, and he runs or CEO of a very interesting project. It looks like it's CAIZ to the American audience, but I've just been advised it's the Arabic word for G's, the first Islamic ecosystem. So just to kick things off then, Philippe, can you give a bit of your background before we speak about your company and your project?
Yeah, of course. Well, of course, thanks again. I'm Dutch, 41 years old, happily married, 2 kids, living in Frankfurt right now. I have a background in artificial intelligence and in finance. Have been an entrepreneur my whole life, always involved in software projects, automating and optimizing processes, trying to create some value through automation. And then in 2015, I came across Bitcoin. And I mean, besides software and building businesses, I have another big passion, that's monetary and financial systems. And of course, I'm not very confident in the current system. And then I discovered Bitcoin and blockchain, and I was sold. I said, well, this is going to save, or not, well, it's a big alternative towards the current system. And that's how I run and moved towards blockchain. And after a few blockchain projects, I stumbled upon CAIZ. We're building this alternative financial ecosystem based on on Islamic principles. And of course, I will speak more about it, but it can solve so many issues we have for so many people in this world. So yeah, that's a quick rundown of who I am and how I entered the blockchain space.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, before we start speaking about maybe Bitcoin blockchain, I'll ask questions for our viewers as we go along. Just to begin with, give a quick overview of CAIZ.
Yeah, so CAIZ, we started more than 2.5 years ago, and our founders they encountered the problem of making international payments. So they are a respected businessman. They needed to make payments all over the world, from Germany to Turkey, and from Holland to Indonesia, and of course, then these international payments they are still very difficult, and they solved it for themselves with cryptocurrencies, but it's still it was okay, but not ideal. And then they started thinking further and said, wait a minute, in the countries that we are paying our payments to, there are many unbanked people, financially underserved people, and that was mainly caused by their religion. I mean, in the Muslim world, many people they can only enjoy financial services if they comply with Islamic financial principles. And if they don't, if these financial tools are not complying with Islamic finance, they're simply not using it. So it's based on religion. And then you have then Islamic banks who offer Islamic banking products, but these are quite expensive. It's how they operate. They do a lot of due diligence. So then they discovered, wait a minute, there is a big need to improve the lives of many Muslims around the world, where we can offer them, because we need to offer them tools which are based on Islamic finance. And because there are Islamic banks available, but these are expensive. So the only way to really solve that big problem of helping these, it's more than 2 billion people who are financially underserved, it's through the blockchain. And then, our founders, they are Muslims themselves, so they know it very well how that works. And then they realize, wait a minute, Islamic finance combined with the blockchain is a very powerful combination. And that's how it started. So the goal is to build this financial Islamic ecosystem on the blockchain, where we provide these products and services based on Islamic finance, so that people can empower themselves, build a financial future. And what's really important in Islam is that it's not only for yourself, you need to get the best out of yourself, but the community, the family is very important. So it's providing the tools that really empowers oneself and empowers the society and community forward. And what I like about this whole setup as well, if you look at Islamic finance, it is really coming back to the original capitalism. So it's what I say real capitalism, where you take money and invest in a project and try to generate profits by improving processes, improving the lives of people and communities. That's real capitalism, and Islamic finance is really resembling that. And I think, and that's a beautiful thing. It's using real capitalism, really humane ways of setting up a business, combined on the blockchain. And that's what CAIZ is. So it's indeed building this ecosystem so that people can have a better life by engaging in economically beneficial behavior with a long-term focus.
Yeah, so you think of, I'm still involved in running a website called Rebuilding Iraq. So what we do is we provide tenders, government tenders and oil and gas contracts, essentially for Western companies to get access to information to the Iraq market. It's like an alert service. I worked for the British government for 3 years doing tender alert services for them and contracts, etc. Now, the reason I was telling about this is it was just that we've got some customers based out of Baghdad. So we were looking to transfer money, and I've had money sent to me like $1,000, and they'll be sending $1,000 essentially from Baghdad to San Diego. But when you get the transcript of the money there, now some of my customers out of Baghdad, they've got the choice of either they pay the fees or I pay the fees. So normally they don't click the button to pay the fees. So when the money transfers over. But it's amazing because then you'll see the money and it'll either go from Baghdad usually to Beirut or Baghdad to Dubai. And then it'll be Dubai over to Switzerland, Switzerland to London, London to New York, and then New York to San Diego. And that process can take like 5 to 7 days. And then normally what I was getting for, say, my $1,000 that someone's taking a subscription to the service, sometimes I'm losing $75, $80. And they would give me a breakdown of when I paid the fees of every single bank it would go through. Everyone took a little chunk of it. Every time it changed currency, I would lose a little bit in the transition fee there as well. And I know essentially that's what Bitcoin was developed to fix, to do this instant transfer. But give a bit of insight to how your business is going to basically help this process and problems that happen.
Yeah. So it's indeed, I mean, as you already mentioned, I mean, Bitcoin is then, of course, much faster. I mean, our Caizcoin is the same. It's based on Stellar, so it's really fast. It's really cheap transactions. And what we have then is that people have then a fiat on ramp. So they, here, suppose in Germany, they need to send money to Malaysia. They have the fiat on ramp. They can simply change what they have. I mean, the euros to Caizcoin. Caizcoin goes into Malaysia, and there we have fiat off ramps where they can quickly exchange the Caizcoin for what is it in Malaysia? The rent. So they go then quickly from euros to rent, and it's a matter of seconds. It is really quick. And the transaction fees is almost nothing. You pay 2 times the transaction fee to exchange and to exchange to Caiz and back to your fiat. But then you talk about 0.1% in total, and then we have 2 options. You can then use, we also are building a Caiz Gold. So you have Caizcoin, it's the cryptocurrency that is used in our blockchain, but Caiz Gold is then a gold-backed token that allows people to store their wealth in gold, which is really important in the Muslim world. So if you would say, I cannot exchange so quickly back to fiat, then you can use the Caiz Gold option, where you then have a stable currency in the middle and then change later back to fiat. So it is a classic remittances service. But the beautiful thing is that it is Islamic compliant. So if you look at, to be Islamic compliant, one of them for remittances, there needs to be full transparency and full KYC done. So it's the whole transaction, because if you're sending money, mostly who is in between, but also the parties in between. They need to be known, and they need to be compliant with Islamic finance. So in that setup, we have a classic remittances service, which is very fast and cheap, and it is Sharia compliant, how they call it. So that is, for example, how we then solve international payments.
So is it working a bit like a stable coin? Is it benchmarked against anything, the Caizcoin, or how does the value of the Caizcoin stay stable compared to, say, the Caiz Gold as an investment vehicle?
Yeah, so of course, JICE Gold, I mean, it's linked into gold, so gold is stable in that sense through
Or
the age.
benchmarked against the gold price?
Yeah, no, but JICE coin is not linked to JICE Gold. I mean, for example, because it goes so quickly. Suppose I would send you then $100 US, and then I would send that transaction takes 10 seconds. So if you are ready to accept an exchange, it goes in seconds. So that currency risk of 10 seconds, well, that's overseeable. If there's more time in between because you're not maybe able to exchange so quickly, then you can use JICE Gold as a more stable option if you want security in the middle. So it's it's a classic remittance service where we help people quickly transact between countries quickly, cheaply, and compliant.
So, which blockchains does it currently interact with, or is it on a completely own blockchain? Is it on Ethereum, or
So it's now the JICE blockchain is built on the Stellar blockchain. It's a hard fork, and we chose the Stellar blockchain. The Stellar blockchain is a beautiful blockchain that is built for financial transactions and to create financial assets, and it's really good for tokenization. So I know you love tokenization, and the Stellar blockchain is really optimized for building these financial products. And then so we used that, and also what's really important is the Stellar blockchain uses what they call FBA, Federated Byzantine Agreement consensus mechanism, where the nodes are more or less known, who are then approving the transactions in the blockchain. We use that blockchain, and then we built in our and the Sharia compliance to conform with the Islamic rules. That meant that, so it's that means we improved the consensus mechanism, we improved the governance mechanism, but then at that point it's so all interactions in the blockchain are Islamic compliant. All products and services that are being launched in the blockchain, in the ecosystem, are then Islamic compliant. But it's then a native blockchain. The native token is Caizcoin, and so that's it. So it's and of course it's like Stellar. You can create multiple coins and assets on top of the ecosystem.
Okay, just to let people understand for that, I've got some pages on your website I want to ask some questions about, but explain a little bit difference between Islamic finance fundamentals and traditional, say, Western finance fundamentals, just so the viewers can understand.
Yeah. I think one of the most known differences is that in Islamic finance, interest is not allowed. So whatever you do, you cannot charge an interest. And then some other principles are, for example, you need full transparency, information asymmetry is not allowed. Of course, well, for Islamic finance also, they call haram activities. You cannot use the funds for gambling or pornography or alcohol or pork meat. That's important. And so that's the core thing. And what they call then the economical principles is that every transaction needs to be just, needs to be fair, and it needs to be set up in such a way that it creates a win-win situation. So that's the core principles. But if you would, then I think the easiest is to give an example how it would work. Then, so in the end, all financial products and services that we have in the Western style financial world, they have an Islamic financial version. For example, if you look then at a mortgage. I mean, in the classical world here, right? We go to the bank, we say we want to buy a house. Okay, it's $500,000. You borrow the money, and then you can buy the house. You need to pay off your mortgage. Suppose if you would miss a few payments, maybe what we see right now, the economy is going down, so house prices are going down. Maybe you lose your job, so you really cannot pay the rent, the mortgage anymore. Say that the house was started at 500,000, it's now 400,000. You cannot pay your interest, your payments anymore. So the bank says, okay, I will force and sell the house and get my mortgage back. So they will kick you out of the house. They will sell the house maybe for $375 because they just want to be quick. So what happens then? You're standing on the street, no job. You have 125,000 left still to pay back to the bank. And that's it. the Islamic financial version is that because you cannot, there cannot be interest involved. So what happens is then the bank says, okay, I purchased the house, then I rent it to you. So I am the owner. I rent it out to you. So you pay a monthly fee, and then you incorporate. I'm buying the house back from the bank. So then, so say 20% is buying back the house, and 80% is the rent. Suppose in the same setup, the house price is going down to 400,000. You lose a job, you cannot make the payments anymore. The bank will then sell the house, but the good thing is that you are already an owner of that house. So you started paying for the house. So maybe you're 10% owner of the house or 20% owner of the house. The bank sells the house because it wants the money back. So it gets 375. If you own 20%, you have 75,000 is yours. So you're standing on the street with 75,000 euros. And that's a very important thing as well that I didn't mention in Islamic finance. So it is not about interest, but it's about sharing risks by equity participation. So if you would be financing my project, we are equity partners, sharing profit and loss, sharing risk with each other. So it's the interests are aligned from the investor and the entrepreneur, versus where a bank, or in our Western style financial world, the financier just is thinking about himself. How can I secure myself? I need to even give extra collateral to make sure that I can pay back. So it's the interests are not aligned in our current Western style financial setup, whereas in the Islamic finance, it's interests are aligned. They try to create a win-win situation, and but I think it's much more humane. It's much more ethical. It goes maybe a bit slower, but it is much more in a humane way, where both, investor and entrepreneur are going for the same goals.
So just before we go on there, if you think of like the banking crisis that happened back in 2008, and now, we've seen a few big banks, Credit Suisse, probably the big one that was out there in Europe that's, took a bit of a hit, but there's been like First Republic was the last one here that JP Morgan bought out as well. And there was the Silicon Bank and a couple other ones. How does the banking crisis affect the Islamic banking industry then?
That's a great question. In 2008 and 2009, in the great financial crisis, no Islamic bank went bankrupt. There were no issues, because what happens is that there is no fractional banking in Islamic banking. There are depositors. Depositors are in fact the investors in projects where they invest money in, and the bank just acts as a middleman. They do due diligence. They select the projects for you. They take a profit share for that. But the depositors, they are in fact owners in the projects they finance, because there's no leverage. There is no leverage. So companies that they invest in, they can go bankrupt, but then it's just a portfolio, a small part of the portfolio that goes under. But in our current banks, the own capital of a bank is just a fraction of the loan portfolio. What happens? Some 10% goes wrong with that loan portfolio. It eats all the own capital from the banks. Insolvent, and end of story. These things don't happen with Islamic banks. It's much more stable. It's also, of course, it's much slower. The due diligence is much more. It takes much more time, because you're investing instead of just borrowing money with additional collateral. So it's good projects are selected, and that's also what I like about this whole thing, because the amount of capital is a bit more limited. Banks or investors, they think twice before investing. So only the real projects that get funded, that really provide long-term benefit. It's a long-term focus versus the short-term focus, where people would just maximize profits by getting some extra leverage and taking on additional risks which are not in the right ratio for the returns that are possible. So it's a beautiful question. None of the Islamic banks went bankrupt. And also now, I think what we will see, of course, what you mentioned, First Republic Bank or Silvergate, it's just crazy how big these banks are and how quickly it goes wrong for these banks. But I can predict none of the Islamic banks will go bankrupt in the coming crisis. And I think that's again, it speaks for them, speaks for this model.
In like I'm going to bring in some pages on your website.
Mhm.
So this fund, so the website is I've got Caizcoin.com.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is the first page is an overview. So you've got like the Caizcoin that you've spoken about, but what's the CAIZ chain? What's that?
Yeah, that's in our own blockchain, and that's our own blockchain. Yeah, and inside the blockchain lives then the Caizcoin, which is then used to access all these products and services that we're building in the CAIZ chain.
And you've got the CAIZ wallet and CAIZ app. So are they both live now as well?
No, it's we are now in the final stages of our development. So it's at the end of Q2 we'll be launching our blockchain and the app and the wallet. So it's it's the final stages of where we are.
Perfect. Now let me just come down there and like now here's your coins as well. I've got the token economics page as well. I'm just going to ask questions in a second, but just again go over like the CAIZ coin, CAIZ stable, and CAIZ gold, and how they all interact together.
Yeah. So the Caizcoin is then the native token in the blockchain used to really interact with the product and services, to make payments, to receive payments, to unlock a certain functionality. CAIZ stable, that is a stable coin. CAIZ gold, that's now further in development, and CAIZ gold is really this gold-backed token which allows you to store your value and your wealth in gold. And what we hear that is really one-to-one backed. We have then vaults in Germany which store the gold. And the beautiful thing is that the Muslim world, they like gold, they love gold, they see gold as a very stable commodity to put value and to store value over generations. But of course, gold has still some bank drawbacks. I mean, storing gold is expensive and difficult. Moving gold, especially larger quantities, is of course difficult and dangerous. Costs money. Yeah, and then also here, of course, we have the gold. It's in that sense tokenized, and then it's created. Yeah, cryptocurrency is created from every milligram of gold. Yeah, then it's quickly to transfer, easy to transfer. There will be you can redeem it. So if you have enough CAIZ gold, you can simply say, "Send me the real gold," and then you can always redeem it one-to-one. But if you don't want to have the hassle of storing the gold yourself in your own house, you can use the CAIZ gold. And this is just balancing. So Caizcoin is used to use the services. CAIZ gold is you can see CAIZ gold as a stable way to store your wealth. To store your wealth, because one of the things for Islamic finance as well, they don't like volatility. So volatility is not wished for. Whatever you do, wealth is fine to build wealth, but you should use your wealth for productive and productive things, improve society, improve communities. That's what Muslims are looking for. But of course, you still need your stable store of value, and that's then CAIZ gold in our ecosystem.
How do they check this though? How do they check it within the finance that they make sure people are actually doing this? What's the way they can ensure this is happening?
You mean that we have the gold in our vault?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do a 2-monthly auditing. So we have then so every 2 months a controller goes inside the vault and simply counts and says, okay, I need so many kilos of gold here in the vault. He's counting and then check, okay, so much gold is in the vault. That's in the end how it works.
And then and essentially that gold is basically tokenized, and then the holders of the CAIZ gold own fractional interests based on how much gold is in there.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty interesting. The other one I'm going to bring in just now. Let me bring in. This is like the token economics. So I'm always interested to how the token economics work. So can you give a little bit of overview of the token economics of how it works, and I can ask some questions as well?
Yeah. I think what we did now with tokenomics, we like. Well, I think. Before I go into this, I do a small side step, because what we like to say, the CAIZ ecosystem is really a use case driven ecosystem. Many people, they don't know about blockchain, they don't understand completely what it is, and that's fine, because we say in the end we want to improve some products and services, and it's about the usability of that product. So people shouldn't even know or realize that they're using blockchain at the back. So that's one. And so we are use case driven. That's also very important in our tokenomics. In our tokenomics, what we said is deflationary. So it's the amount of Caizcoin coming into the ecosystem is linked to the number of verified users. So the more users enter the system, the more Caizcoins are released into the system, so that the amount of Caizcoin always grows, but in relation to the average available coins, that decreases. So we started. So we had in the initial phase, we sold 1%. We have in total 999,999,999 Jais, and so almost 1 billion. We sold 1% in the seed phase and 1% in the public sale. So 2% is then out, which we use to fund the whole development, and 2% is always allocated in the liquidity wallet to, of course, provide the liquidity services on the exchanges, so that it's easy to buy and sell. So 40 million tokens are out there, and as soon as our own blockchain goes live, every new verified wallet will release for the first million wallets 7.75 Jais. So, and why is that deflationary? The average amount of Jais available for the users at that moment is always higher than when the next user comes. This is very important because inflation ruins quite some things. I mean, it's do nothing and you lose purchasing power. In a deflationary setup is you're just you are rewarded for being in this ecosystem. You're rewarded for holding your coins. Do nothing and your purchasing power will increase. So that's of course the idea of the CAIZ blockchain, removing volatility. If you just want to keep your Caizcoin for 1 year, 2 years, it's deflationary. You can almost be certain that the deflationary powers increase the purchasing power of your coin. So it's deflationary. And then what's also happening is that you can see in here in the how we allocate, how we distribute the coins. So for every new user, for the first million users, 7.75 Caizcoin enters the ecosystem. A part goes to the ecosystem, that means to the people in the ecosystem. A part goes to our treasury of the foundation. The foundation is then a task for overseeing and managing the development and the growth of the system. The team, everybody working in the CAIZ ecosystem gets a part of the coins. CAIZ Gold. So whatever we do, we always build that pot of gold to make sure that there's always enough gold and enough gold available for everyone to purchase CAIZ Gold and to use it. There's 5% reserved for promotion and making sure that we can grow. Regulation is very important in our ecosystem, and that's also very important in Islamic finance. I mean, transparency, reducing risks. So yeah, we work together with regulators, make sure that all the financial products are regulated in every country that are available. So, well, of course, this whole regulatory compliance, that also requires money, and part of the tokens go towards making sure that we're compliant. And then that's another very important Islamic principle, charity. They call it a zakat. Every Muslim is required to spend 2.5% per year of his or her wealth to charity, to help the needy. And we also build in this charity component into our tokenomics, so a part automatically goes to charity. We even incorporate it in the wallet. So I mean, if you have a wallet, you can say pay automatically my 2.5% to the charity. Part of the profits of the whole ecosystem goes towards charity. And then the nice thing of the whole charity is people in the ecosystem, they can vote together how to allocate the money spent to charity. So it's really this whole important principle of helping the needy that's built in the ecosystem at multiple levels. And and users can then also decide how to spend it. So that's the whole tokenomics. Deflationary, use case driven. We say there's always enough CAIZ available for everyone, but the average always gets a little bit less. So rewarding the people that entered the ecosystem early.
So you say you've got 1 billion coins, CAIZ coins, essentially. So what was the initial seed phase and the public sale phase and the liquidity of the wallets? So it's 4% of all the coins. What were the coins sold at?
It was a bit. We started. We started on low, and it ended at 10.45. So the latest price is 10.45, and that's also the price that we are now using as the reference price.
$10.45.
$10.45. Yeah.
Okay, so that's when people come in to acquire the CAIZ coins. And are they held in wallets just now, or is this just on a sort of note?
Yeah. So it's now they are now available as ERC20 tokens based on the Ethereum blockchain. So it's now ERC20. As soon as we live our native blockchain, there will be a bridge, so you can exchange your current ERC20 CAIZ coins for the native CAIZ coin, and then really enter into the ecosystem using our products and services.
So the CAIZ coins available for people to acquire right now, or is it just they get minted and they give the money directly to you?
It's not yet. I mean, they are minted, so they would. I mean, if we sell it, it goes to the ecosystem. But yet, so we are not live yet on the
exchange.
No, we are preparing that, and we're preparing that. It's coming in the near future.
Right. So and then when people are coming to buy the CAIZ coins now, they would just be. Is there any for public sale at all, or can we not buy any? So if I wanted to buy CAIZ, well, I wouldn't be allowed to buy CAIZ coins because I'm not Muslim. But if a Muslim was out there wanted to buy CAIZ coins, how would they go around doing this?
Yeah. So I think I cannot tell you an exact date, but it is really the near future. So what I would simply say is that come to our website, just simply subscribe to the newsletter. I mean, and then we tell you exactly when it is happening. You can then buy through our website, or you can go to the exchanges and buy on a regular crypto exchange the CAIZ coin.
So how will the CAIZ coin, because obviously Bitcoin now, I think of like Bitcoin, Ethereum is a bit like a tech stock to a certain extent. It's so tied into the economy that when the economy goes down, ultimately that can have a knock-on effect as well. So how's the CAIZ coin going to be able to operate alongside the sort of crypto ecosystem?
Yeah. I mean, ideally, it's the CAIZ ecosystem develops into an alternative financial system. So I think also if you look at Bitcoin, it has the potential to really replace the current financial system. So it would be replacing the current financial system, and CAIZ coin, the CAIZ ecosystem is also an alternative. We have then the stability of CAIZ gold, where people say, okay, I just want to be long term with gold, and I use the CAIZ coin to offer my services and to invest in other projects. And because it's use case driven, it's really for the community where people, if you need money, you can then, it's kind of crowdfunding platform as well. I have a business, I need $10,000 to make some investments. Yeah, I mean, I have a project to invite others to invest in my business. Of course, it's Islamic compliant then with the right principles applied. So it is. And then you will, for example, invest 5,000, and person two also 5,000. You are an equity holders, shareholders in the project. I earn. So it's for and by the people in the ecosystem. And if, of course, merchants are also then entering the whole platform that starts selling in CAIZ coin or accepting CAIZ coin because there's a convertibility to CAIZ gold. It can really act as an alternative where people don't need to rely on fiat money from the US dollar or euros or domestic currencies. And that's, of course, the ideal situation. There's always this transition. We also find it very important. I think it's crucial. We call it DC. So there will always be the combination between the decentralized world and the blockchain world and the centralized world, where regulators and financial institutions also play a role. So regulators always will try to protect consumers. So financial products will always be regulated, mortgages, financial investment products. So that's fine. These regulators play a crucial role to ensure consumers that it is safe to do this. Yeah, and then what is a disadvantage of blockchain and the decentralized finance is it is often complicated, right? Complicated. People don't understand how to use it, and if you look at the centralized financial world, the banks, they have a friendly face. They explain it to people. So these, I think, banks they will transition towards what they do right now, towards more an advisory role, and earn by providing good advice, or than just being paid per hour for giving advice. And they also play then a role in the new financial world. So we see currency could change. I mean, Bitcoin will play a very important role in the new monetary system. We also hope, and of course, working on the Caizcoin combined with gold is then playing a crucial role. Yeah, and then try to incorporate as many current financial institutions, because they have the reach, and they can reach out to consumers all over the world. So it's a very ambitious project. I speak in the ideal world, maybe in 10 years, 20 years that we are there, but it's at least a vision to be separated from the US dollar or from the euro, because it is possible.
So what are traditional Islamic banks thinking about of your product right now? And then just the second part of that question is, you've got like JPM Morgan creating the JPM coin. Is this a similar type model that they're doing, or can you just explain how all that works in terms of JPM Morgan and the Islamic banking?
Yeah. So Islamic banks, they in principle they like the idea, because they Islamic banks, they also want to offer good services for the communities. They are just limited in operational and resource terms. They cannot offer more to the consumers. It's simply too expensive to do that. So they also realize blockchain is a very nice way to offer services to many more people in a compliant way. So Islamic banks, they in general, they like the idea of blockchain. They see the power of it. They see the combination of it. It's just that Islamic finance, I mean, these institutions are pretty conservative, so they are not moving so quickly. But in principle, they like it. So they are slow moving, but very positive. I mean, JP Morgan and JP Morgan Coin. I don't have the specifics of JP Morgan Coin on top of my mind, but what I can remember there is that they like to use it for a settlement improvement and improving the back office, more or less, of what they do. If you look at banks working on blockchain projects, they mostly look at it as a way to improve their back office operations, to make payments more efficient. They're not interested in cutting themselves out of the whole transaction. So I think banks are very scared for blockchain technology, because they play this middleman role. What you just mentioned in the beginning, that the transaction from Baghdad goes through 6 intermediate banks to the US. Yeah, they earn by just connecting IT systems. They are losing their jobs by blockchain technology. But if they can say we control it internally, and then we can still sell it for quite a nice price, that's what most banks are doing now, just connecting their own back offices to each other. They are not interested in creating a tool to give maximum transparency and immutability to the consumers. So JP Morgan Coin is not a coin that is based on ideal principles for us to have a safe financial future.
So if you think of like, well, I'm from Scotland, involved in the oil and gas industry, growing up there, and then obviously, you've got the big exporters of oil, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, all over the Middle East, Qatar for the gas, etc. there as well. Would they be able to use the Caizcoin for essentially, settlements? And I know, just looking at Iraq as well, that Kurdistan, one of their biggest problems is they've got lots of oil, difficulty getting out of the country because it's landlocked. You either go through Turkey, Syria, Iran, or Iraq. But then again, the money comes back through central Baghdad. Yeah, and then the Central Baghdad, they keep the money, and it doesn't go back to the Kurdistan government or Kurdistan regional government. And there's this constant way of complaining about things and how the whole operational works. How could Caizcoin sort of solve a lot of these problems?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a very crucial and critical thing, and that's of course what blockchain is doing in that sense, reducing the middleman. And how Caizcoin solves this issue is that all companies and people inside the ecosystem, they are verified. So there is in the end no uncertainty about who is transacting with who. But the beautiful thing is, so everybody is a real person, a real business. But then, I mean, if I want to send you some Caizcoin, there, as long as it is compliant, I can send you the coin and nobody's stopping it. For example, we don't allow the transaction if it would be used for pornography, for example, or gambling. So that is something that we're not allowing. But for all the other things, I can send you a Caizcoin and nobody can stop it. I'm allowed and you are allowed to receive it, and then you can simply exchange the Caizcoin for gold or for local currency or for euros or whatever you need. You can do that, and that's a beautiful thing. There's no intermediary who can indeed decide, well, I don't like this transaction, I stop it. And so yeah, I mean, if Kurdistan likes to sell it, it can do beautifully in Caizcoin, and it goes quicker, cheaper, and nobody stops it, and that's a beautiful thing. So it's as long as it's a real business transaction, a real contract behind, then it's fine. It's simply solving that issue.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because I always think that, the adoption of the technology of blockchain, you think of Dubai and all the investment they're doing now, Abu Dhabi, all the places in the Middle East are coming into doing this. And I know like ADNOC, they're investing a lot of money in terms of blockchain technology and energy. So, but the one thing is, it's like, I never think, out of these countries, they would want to adopt Bitcoin, because it's like completely out with their control and it's a standard system. But it doesn't mean the technology's there. So, the Caizcoin's coming along, and if it's long by Islamic principles, and then suddenly you're providing their access to this technology in a way they want to use it,
Yeah. Exactly that, and just this component is so important, because you could use Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is the scholars, you have the Islamic scholars who decide or who give their opinion, is this Sharia compliant or not. And there's a big debate going on. Are cryptocurrencies compliant or not? They say the simple coins with not, and then I call, say, for example, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, these things that have not much puha on top of it. They say, well, half of the scholars say it's Sharia compliant, and the other half says it isn't, because it's still used for a lot of speculation, and it's for the Islamic product. The products are built on Bitcoin are then using leverage, and it's with hedges, and so they say, well, it's not compliant, and that's why it is so important with Caizcoin. We say it is compliant at every level from the nodes to the middle layer to the application layer, the usage, everything is compliant. So now it is really compliant at all levels. Yeah, and then it suddenly becomes an alternative for fiat or for fiat money. So it's only at that point that they can really consider using a Sharia compliant cryptocurrency to improve their transfers.
Yeah, because I know a person that runs a Islamic bank in Australia, and we just message online. I don't know him very well, but it was just like, I was trying to sell him something back then, so he was actually asking me questions. So, but the one thing he didn't like about Bitcoin was, all the transactions on the dark web, everything that's getting done. People were using it in Bitcoin, which was anonymous. And for him and his banking, he just said it just doesn't comply with, essentially, like you're saying, the Sharia law and Islamic banking principles, because it's people use it for this sort of anything on the dark web. They're using Bitcoin because it's anonymous. So, just sort of rounding out the podcast there, it's like you're created this Caizcoin that can essentially have all the benefits of something like Bitcoin, but it has this, ticking all the boxes for the underlying principles.
True. That's a great summary. And that's exactly what we do. And that's also exactly why we think we can really unlock. But if you look at the whole Muslim world, 1.5 billion people have no access to financial services because of these reasons, because it's not completely compliant. Yeah, it's just, I mean, 1 in 7 people, 1 in 4 people in the world have no access to that. It's crazy. And it's crazy to think about how many people that are. But yeah, it's exactly that. Indeed, it's all the benefits of Bitcoin, but then Sharia compliant.
Yeah, well, because I live down in San Diego, and I just know the fees for the money changers here.
Mm-hmm.
So you've still got a huge amount of, Hispanic community that comes over here. They've all got green cards. They all come over here, work every day. There's 100,000 cross the border, but there's a lot of them are coming from inner parts of Mexico. So, whatever they get paid each week, they're using the money changers and then they're wiring the money back. But, some of that traditional money wiring, even though the time it takes to go through it now, it's still, the fees are just so horrendous,
Absolutely, yeah. They still have a monopoly, and it's crazy, right? It's simply a transfer, and they charge you 5 to 10%, and you need to wait a week, and yeah, crazy. You lose so much time for paying in, paying out. True. It's
Oh yeah, the money advance. The weirdest thing about it is if you want to send it and it takes 7 days, they'll charge you 3%. But if you want to send it and it's going to go tomorrow, they'll charge you like 8-9%.
Yeah.
It's like it's the same transaction. It's like it's a computer. It's just some numbers on a computer that goes to some numbers on a computer, and they can download the numbers.
Exactly
So to me, it's like, how does it? It seems so immoral that they've got a financial system. But it's interesting what you're saying, Philippe. It's just like, obviously the banks are going to be against this type of technology coming on because they're going to want to hold on to the old system as long as possible,
Yeah, exactly that.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So yeah, well, that's just coming up for past 40 minutes anyway. Just flew by anyway, Philippe. I was super interested learning about it. Is there anything else you want to say to our viewers just to finish off the podcast and where they can find out more information about it?
I mean, I enjoyed the talk as well. I mean, 40 minutes so quickly. If you want to know more about Caizcoin, of course, caizcoin.com, our website. You can read all about it. As said, I mean, we are preparing our launches on the blockchain. On the exchanges. Also, the sales on our website. So yeah, if you're interested, come to our site, subscribe to the newsletter, and you won't miss anything. Our social media is good. What we notice, and maybe that's interesting, is that we notice many people still don't know about blockchain. So we have educational series where we simply explain from layman terms towards more advanced knowledge levels how Bitcoin, how blockchain works, what you can do with it. So yeah, I think if you want to learn more about blockchain and of course, guys, come to our site, our social media, and we're happy to explain more through our educational series.
Okay, that's excellent. Well, thanks very much for coming on this show today then, Philippe.
Yeah, Alistair, thanks a lot. And then, hope to see you soon then.
Okay, well, thanks very much for everyone out there. You've been watching Boom It's on the Blockchain. My name's Alistair Caizcoin. Have a nice day.
Thanks.